If you're tired of politics as usual, you're in the right place. We believe a better world is possible, and it starts with better policy. On this show, we don't just critique the system, we build the case for transformative, progressive change. We look at who has the power, who doesn't, and what we can do about it. Let's get to work. This is a Template for Congress podcast.
Today, we're dissecting the two biggest warning signs for the GOP. First, the incredible act of defiance in the Indiana State Senate over electoral maps, and second, the disastrously slim Republican victory in the Tennessee special election. This is the writing on the wall, and it offers a genuine window of opportunity for the left progressive movement. Friends, for years, we've watched a seemingly endless parade of Republican officials, from Congress all the way down to state houses, simply fold when Donald Trump makes a demand. They've sacrificed their principles, their integrity, and frankly, the stability of their own democratic institutions just to stay in the good graces of the far-right MAGA base. It's been a sickening spectacle. But something is shifting. We just saw two huge political tremors that suggest the wall of Republican obedience is finally cracking. And it's not just a polite disagreement, it's a full-blown fracture driven by fear of institutional collapse and the cold, hard facts of voter data. Let's start with a story that reads like a political thriller. The Indiana State Senate. The context here is critical. Congressional maps are usually redrawn once every 10 years after the census, but President Trump and his allies, Vice President Vance, House Speaker Mike Johnson, and others, launched an aggressive national pressure campaign to force states to redraw their maps mid-cycle, purely to gain an advantage in the upcoming midterm elections. The target in Indiana was to gerrymander a map so extreme it would turn the state's congressional delegation from a 7-2 Republican advantage into a lopsided, undemocratic 9-0 shutout, eliminating both Democratic seats. But then, the unthinkable happened. The Republican-controlled Indiana State Senate voted the bill down, 31-19. Think about that for a second. In a chamber where Republicans hold a supermajority, 21 Republicans joined all 10 Democrats to kill a bill demanded by their own president. Why? The answer is as inspiring as it is terrifying. The pressure campaign was so extreme, so corrosive, that it forced some Republicans to choose their institution over their party's demagogue. We're talking about a campaign of political terrorism. State senators were subjected to bomb threats, swatting attacks, and a deluge of over-the-top pressure from inside and outside the State House. Trump and his allies openly threatened to primary any Republican who opposed the map, with one influential conservative group, Heritage Action, even warning that if the map failed, all federal funding will be stripped from the state. Roads will not be paved, guard bases will close, major projects will stop. That's not a political disagreement, that's economic and political extortion. Republican State Senator Greg Walker, chair of the Senate Committee on Elections, captured the absolute gravity of the moment, stating, and I quote, "I fear for this institution. I fear for the state of Indiana, and I fear for all states if we allow intimidation and threats to become the norm." This vote isn't a sign that Republicans are suddenly embracing fair democracy. It's a sign that the cost of serving Trump's extremism has become an existential threat to their power and their personal safety. They drew a line not because of morality, but because they saw the abyss of utter chaos and decided to step back.
Next, let's cover a story that attempts to provide insight. To understand the victory here from a progressive lens, we have to understand what the defeated map would have done. This map was a clear-cut case of structural racism and political disenfranchisement.
The Princeton Gerrymandering Project, a nonpartisan group, gave the proposed map an F grade. The entire point of the gerrymander was to erase the seat of Black Democratic Representative Andre Carson. How? By splitting the city of Indianapolis, the state's largest city and economic driver, into 4 different districts. Carson's current district, which favors Democrats by a whopping 40 points, would have been redrawn to favor Trump by nearly 20 points. It would have gone from a compact urban district that is roughly 50% non-white to a sprawling rural district that is 80% white. In short, this was a national, coordinated attempt to dramatically dilute the power of minority voters in Indianapolis and ensure zero representation for Democrats. Representative Carson himself said it clearly: splicing our state's largest city and its biggest economic driver into 4 parts is ridiculous. It's clear these orders are coming from Washington, and they clearly don't know the first thing about our community. The defeat of this map is a crucial win for democratic stability and for protecting the voting power of urban and minority communities. It shows that sometimes the extremism is so blatant, so overtly anti-democratic, that it can be stopped, even by some members of the party pushing it. The fight for fair maps is absolutely central to the progressive project because a rigged map means the majority's will can never be enacted. Next, a tale of great importance. Now let's pivot from institutional panic to voter reality. Tennessee. The Indiana story shows Republicans worried about internal collapse. The Tennessee special election shows them facing external rejection. In a recent special election for a U.S. House seat, the Republican candidate Matt Van Epps won. So, why are Republicans dreading what it means about the midterms? Because this was a district that Donald Trump had carried by a massive 22 percentage points just a year prior. The Republican candidate only won by about 9 percentage points. That's a massive double-digit swing, a 13 percentage point shift toward the Democrats. This isn't an isolated incident. Across special elections this year, Democratic candidates have consistently outperformed the previous presidential margins by an average of 13 to 16 percentage points. What does this tell us? Republican strategists are openly warning that the danger signs are there and that they shouldn't have had to spend that kind of money to hold a deep red seat. The swing proves 2 things according to the data. 1, MAGA is toxic. The Republican base is either less enthusiastic or the Trump brand is mobilizing the opposition in a way that simply overwhelms the base. And 2, the progressive message resonates. The Democratic nominee Afton Ben focused her campaign on affordability. In the Nashville portion of the gerrymandered district, she crushed the Republican nominee 78% to 22%, proving that when the focus is on economic relief and progressive values, our side turns out in force. This is the writing on the wall. The Republican Party, anchored to extremism, is losing America, not just in purple states, but in deep red territory.
And our last story of our podcast with some hope. So we have a clear multi-front crack in the GOP's armor. In Indiana, we saw the party's own officials reject the authoritarianism of the Trump regime when it became a clear threat to the institutional integrity of their legislature. They pushed back against overt gerrymandering, extortion, and violence. In Tennessee, we saw the voters reject the party's extremism, swinging a deeply red district by a huge margin because the progressive focus on bread and butter issues like affordability resonated. This is the strategic opportunity for the left progressive socialist movement. We must not be fooled into praising the handful of Republicans who voted no in Indiana. They are not our allies. They are institutionalists who recoiled from fascism only when it bit them. Our focus must remain on the core progressive goals. Systemic electoral reform. Use the gerrymandering attempts as a moral and factual cudgel to push for national voting rights and independent redistricting commissions. Economic populism. Double down on the economic message. The Tennessee result proves that the working class is tired of the culture wars and ready to listen to a message of genuine affordability, worker power, and a socialist vision for a fair economy. Organizing and mobilization. The swing toward Democrats proves that Democratic and anti-Trump enthusiasm is dramatically high. We must continue to mobilize every segment of the left to capitalize on this fracture. When they are fighting amongst themselves, we must be organizing to win.
The future of this country does not belong to the politics of fear and intimidation. It belongs to the politics of fairness, of dignity, and of true democracy. Let's make sure we seize this opening. Here is your template for Congress. Find the organizations in your state working on anti-gerrymandering efforts and offer your time or money. These local legislative fights are the trenches of democracy, and they are winnable, as Indiana just proved. Also, share this episode with 3 people you know who have become disillusioned with the two-party system. Show them where the real opportunity for change lies. That's all for now on a Template for Congress podcast. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
A better Congress starts with a better template. This episode of A Template for Congress podcast has come to a close. For a full list of sources, supplemental reading, and deeper analysis of our political position, navigate to atemplateforcongress.org today. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our podcast and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate your support.